All right, vetters. Whew, got a story for you today. Okay, so do we remember Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet? He testified at the hearing last week on November 13th in the House, right? Famously about this Go Fast video, right? This UFO video. Remember that? It's this.
Echo 6-1 Tango Project, over.
Oh, got it! Woohoo!
Roger, there's troubleshooting.
Did you box moving target?
602.
No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly!
Well, there's more to this story. You see, apparently Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet had received an email, right, about this video and an exercise that they were going to stop and asking people about this. And then next thing you know, that email's deleted, right? But we never found out who deleted the email, right? Well, now we know. So first, let Tim Gallaudet explain a little bit better this story that happened.
Here we go. My confirmation came in 2015. Okay, and in one of those videos, and one of those aviators that Leslie mentioned, Ryan Graves, was flying off this ship, the USS Theodore Roosevelt, in 2015 during an exercise called Comp 2X. I was a one-star admiral. My sailors were on that ship forecasting weather. That was my job, weather and oceanography. And these pilots were having multiple encounters with these things. I get an email on Navy's secret network, and it was from the operations officer of the U.S. Fleet Forces Command, the four-star admiral in charge of this exercise. And the title of the email on the secret network was Urgent Safety of Flight Issue. And the text was very brief, but alarming, and it said, if any of you know what these are, tell me ASAP. We're having numerous near mid-air collisions, and we're going to have to shut down the exercise if we don't resolve this. And attached was the Go Fast video, where you hear all the pilots, expletives, and all that, because they were astonished at this stuff, and it was happening all the time. For a two-star admiral to shut down an exercise that was a pre-deployment workup, very compressed, got to get the ships out, got to get the pilots qualified on the carrier. The pressure is insane. For him to even talk about shutting down the exercise was I've never seen it before. And these things were doing it. So, by the way, there are debunkers out there that talk about this Go Fast video possibly being just a balloon, and there were so many of them out there and so much was occurring. A two-star would not shut down that exercise or even talk about it if it was just a bunch of balloons. They were sure this was safety of flight. And Leslie talked about the section being split, the two aircraft. It was serious. So I saw that and I knew immediately, well, we don't do technology demonstrations in U.S. training areas. We just don't do it because of the pressure of workup cycles. And so I was pretty convinced at that time, okay, this is not our tech. I knew it wasn't China or Russia tech because I'd been reading all the threats. I had secret access program access, and I knew, okay, this is something different. But I couldn't say much about it, and I'll talk about that later, because I stayed in government.
Now, there's a lot more to this video because just recently at the Aero Senate hearing, the new director, Kozlowski, attempted to release the sort of debunk of this Go Fast video, which added further, drama to the whole scenario in this scene, right?
The Go Fast was captured the public attention and congressional attention when it was made public in 2017. Looks like an object flying very fast over the water, very close to the water. Through a very careful geospatial intelligence analysis using trigonometry, we assess with high confidence that the object is not actually close to the water, but is rather closer to 13,000 feet. Diagram here shows as the platform is flying and capturing the object, if it is closer to the platform at a higher altitude, a trick of the eye called parallax makes it look like the object is moving much faster. And so we've written a detailed paper on parallax, released that on our website so that the public can literally check our math on this analysis.
Who's sitting behind him? This is awkward. Well, that's Susan Go. She is the Pentagon spokesperson, and a lot of people are not too fond of her. In fact, Lou Elizondo called her a psychological operations officer working for the Pentagon, right, to feed disinformation to the public. Now, let's get to the part where Tim Gallaudet reveals at this Explorers Club event, right, that just took place yesterday, he reveals for the first time who deleted that email. And I have to be honest, not who I was expecting to hear.
But ultimately, I found out later, I know what happened. That email was wiped from my computer the next day, and my boss and the operations officer never talked about it in different meetings. How did that happen? Because this gentleman in charge of the UAP task force at the time directed that the email be taken off because that he wasn't sure if that was U.S. tech or not, as Leslie mentioned. Jay Stratton, he led that task force, and he actually that little symbol in the middle, he just got an award this year for leading his effort to investigate UFOs by the current director of national intelligence, which is quite astonishing. It kind of reveals this sort of fractured nature of our UAP policy right now, that he gets an award, but we don't talk about it. I don't know what. So that's a whole other thing. But that email was wiped from my computer because Jay directed it so, and they were trying to investigate. Is that U.S. tech, adversary tech, or something different? And ultimately, I've communicated with Jay, and we realize now it was not U.S. tech, and it was not adversary tech. It's something different, and we don't know what it is.
So he brings up Jay Stratton, right? Who is Jay Stratton? Well, you may or may not be familiar with him, but I'm going to let Tim Gallaudet explain a little bit of who he is, because he brought him up during the hearing, but not about this.
There was a UAP task force in the DOD succeeding where Mr. Elizondo worked, led by Jay Stratton, who had the first comprehensive whole-of-government approach to UAP, which involved pathways to declassification and to increase transparency, as well as assessing the national security risks of UAP. This was a really well-established approach, and we have all advocated that something like it return.
Now, so he doesn't bring up Jay Stratton, being the one that deletes this email, but he brings him up in this capacity that he ran the UAPTF. Now, according to that timeline of when this video got deleted, this was before Jay Stratton was in the UAPTF. So I'm not sure what's going on, right? Did he know about, was he studying UFOs before the UAPTF, right, for many years? Because this is almost a decade ago now. Now, this is what Tim Gallaudet said during the hearing.
The implication of the email was clear. The author was asking whether any of the recipients were aware of classified technology demonstrations that could explain these objects. Because the DoD policy is to rigorously deconflict such demonstrations with live exercises, I was confident this was not the case. The very next day, that email disappeared from my account and those of the other recipients without explanation. Moreover, the commander of Fleet Forces Command and the operations officer never discussed the subject. Even during weekly meetings specifically designed to address issues affecting exercises like the one in which the Theodore Roosevelt Strike Group was participating. This lack of follow-up was very concerning to me. As the Navy's chief meteorologist at the time, I was responsible for reducing safety of flight risks. Yet it appeared to me that no one at the flag officer level was addressing the safety risk posed by UAPs. Instead, pilots were left to mitigate these threats on their own without guidance or support.
So again, no mention that the former head of the UAPTF, right, the same organization that David Grush worked for, right, and built his entire investigation that he testified to last year, no mention that that same person who's the head of this program is actually the one who deleted the email, right? I just think that's interesting. Why not mention that? Because Tim Gallaudet is given several opportunities to bring it up. He's asked by several different congressmen about this email, and he could have brought it up at any moment.
Admiral Gallaudet, you mentioned in your opening statement on an email you received from the operations officer of the Fleet Forces Command regarding unknown objects almost colliding with U.S. military planes. Did anyone respond with knowledge of what the objects were?
I received no response, sir.
Did the exercise get canceled?
The exercise did not get canceled.
Why do you think the Commander of Fleet Forces Operations Officer never discussed the incident again?
Sir, I'm speculating because I didn't have an exchange with him, but I believed it to be part of a special access program, the information and the video, which we have known now it was, and he realized he couldn't share that openly with the recipients of the email, and therefore the email was pulled from everybody's account.
Again, tell us what happened to the email from the Commander of Fleet Forces.
The day after I received it, and all the other recipients received it, which were all the subordinate commanders of U.S. Fleet Forces, so 1- and 2-star admirals, including strike group commanders, the email was wiped or deleted from our accounts,
Okay.
and then no one talked about it.
All right.
Interesting. Still no mention that Jay Stratton is the one that deleted that email.
Admiral, the video that is called the Go Fast video, the email that you've talked about being deleted, I just want to briefly cover this. You said that the email, the author was asking whether any of the recipients were aware of the classified technology demonstrations that it could explain the objects that were observed. And then you said the email disappears. Then you guys have a series of meetings. The Commander of Fleet Forces and his operations officer never discussed the incident again. Is that right? Is that accurate?
That's accurate, sir.
And even during weekly meetings, it was never discussed again. My question for you is, you were in those meetings. Did you personally hear that nothing was going on about that?
Yes, sir, I was in those meetings, and...
Did you make inquiries about that?
No, I did not, sir, because I inferred, since I had been read into other special access programs, that this UAP video was part of one that I was not read into, or any of the recipients, or the author of the email, and that an intelligence agency basically pulled it back and instructed the author of the email, hey, this is, you just conducted what they call spillage into a lower classification level, and when that's done, the procedures are basically to remove any of the communication.
You're going to silo it.
Now, maybe there's a reasonable explanation for all of this, right? Because now that Tim Gallaudet has testified under oath about this story and this email, he can kind of talk more about it. And, well, I already testified, so he can add more details that if he had shared beforehand, probably would have been asked to testify about that, right? So I don't know if it was strategically done on purpose, right, to then now be able to mention Jay Stratton, because what are we going to do? Oh, well, let's get him back to testify under oath about that. But I have to admit, why not bring him up? Why not bring up that that's the person, and that you then spoke to him and decided, right, it wasn't our tech and it's probably a UAP, right, an alien craft or something. Like, why not bring all of that up? I don't get it, right? But look, let's be fair here, right? Let's play devil's advocate as well. Because during this initial hearing last week, Jared Moskowitz said something quite interesting. And maybe this is part of the reason that Tim Gallaudet didn't bring it up and why Congress didn't push him further on who deleted that email.
When the American people and members of Congress ask, are reports of UAPs credible, we're met with stonewalling. We're met with responses of, I can't tell you. And in fact, we're met with people not wanting us to have hearings. We're met with people not wanting us to ask you questions. In fact, many of us were told not to ask some of you certain questions on certain topics.
Now, I think it's also worth mentioning that Ryan Graves came out after that Go Fast sort of debunking, right, by Kozlowski that I played earlier, saying that the pilot who shot that video has never been contacted by Aero. I find that quite interesting. So Aero comes out with that sort of saying, you know, debunk video, I guess, however you want to call it, right? Saying, oh, it's not actually going that fast. It's parallax. Okay, but that doesn't explain what it is, right? And the other context to that. And why wouldn't you interview the pilot, right? So there's definitely something fishy with this Go Fast video. And definitely something fishy that Jay Stratton was involved back in 2015 before the UAPTF ever took over, right? So clearly he was involved. To what extent? And why not mention him at the hearing in this way, right? Just in the other way. But not mention that, oh, yeah, the guy I just mentioned about the UAPTF and who was the boss to David Grush, yeah, he's the one that had that email deleted, right? Because honestly, it makes it sound less nefarious, right? When you hear the explanation, oh, Jay Stratton had it deleted, whatever, for a good reason, right? So it's not that nefarious that it got deleted, because that's a big crux to the story with Tim Gallaudet, right? Is that the gatekeepers had it deleted. Well, no. It was Jay Stratton, right? Now, I just say that, because it doesn't take away from the video, what the pilot saw, the interaction, right? You know what I mean? It doesn't take away from that. Right? That there were several of them flying around. So I don't know why just not be honest about all that. It seems interesting. But now you can reveal that information at an Explorers Club meeting. And by the way, that's a 2-hour presentation with him and Leslie Kean. I highly recommend going and watching the whole thing. There's a Q&A as well. And many other people spoke. But what I find interesting is a lot of information that's revealed, right, in this presentation that isn't made public, that they don't talk about in podcasts and stuff. And I'm finding that to be sort of a similar circumstance with a lot of UFO celebrities, if you will, right? The people out here testifying and telling stories and going on podcasts and writing books, right? It seems like they reveal a lot in these presentations that you either pay for or invited to or something, but not to the public. So I don't know, y'all. Just curious. We just want the information, right? We want transparency from our government, yet we're not really getting much transparency from the people who are saying that, right? Who are coming out with this. So, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading too much into this. Maybe there's more context that I don't know. Willing to admit that. But just asking questions. I find it very curious. So anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed today's video. We will see you guys tomorrow. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep.